Good evening. My name is Stephanie Anthony Miles, and tonight we're going to be talking with Jeffrey Boyd, candidate for treasurer in the city of St. Louis. Mr. Boyd is also an alderman in the 22nd Ward, and he has been an alderman since 2003. Mr. Boyd, how are you today?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're going to jump right into it. I want you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been married to a beautiful wife, Patrice, for almost 30 years. We have 3 children and a grandbaby. I have a son, 2 daughters, and a granddaughter. I've served my country for over 23 years. I'm a retired Master Sergeant. I'm currently serving as the alderman for the 22nd Ward over 17 years. I'm the chairman of Streets, Refuse, and Traffic, and I also serve on the Parking Commission. I have a master's in business administration, and I've been a business owner for over 30 years.
Alderman for 17 years. How do you believe your role as an alderman will help facilitate you as the city treasurer?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the role of an alderman.
Okay.
Aldermen are basically legislators. We write laws to help govern the city of St. Louis. That is our primary function. But over the years, aldermen have gotten involved into economic development activities, housing development activities. People call upon their aldermen today for things that you wouldn't imagine. I mean, we get calls for not just city services, for personal issues to deal with people. But at the end of the day, an alderman is your link to City Hall. If you have a problem with city services, you've gone through the proper channels, you've called the Citizen Service Bureau, which is 314-622-4800. They serve all your needs when it comes to city services needing to be rendered. But when they fail to do their job, then you contact your alderman because we are your link to City Hall, and then we will solve your problems for you.
What are some of your accomplishments as alderman, and how do those accomplishments qualify you to run for this office?
Well, sure. I believe being alderman has helped me become a very well-rounded person and truly understand the needs of our citizens. As alderman, there are a few things that I'm very proud of that I've been involved in. Number one, back in 2007, unfortunately, Officer Nobel Brown was shot and killed. That just tore me apart. I had just met the young man 2 weeks prior. He was 22 years old. He was about the same age as my son. I kind of looked at him like a son. I had a chance to have conversation with him, and it really saddened me. So we called an emergency meeting. We had an emergency meeting at the church. We had over 300 some people there. And I just needed to have conversation with our community because a 15-year-old was accused of killing this young police officer, and I had a problem with that. We had a meeting. Fortunately, we had a lot of young people at the meeting, and we wanted to hear from them. And some of the stories that were shared at that meeting were really heart-wrenching. Some of them said, hey, look, don't give up on us. Here are some of my life stories and what I'm experiencing. And they had a lot of issues. They were dealing with stuff in middle school that's unheard of. All I would say is grown folk stuff. And my heart really went out to the community, especially for our young people. And I kept saying, what can I do? We need to do something about this. And I was approached by big brothers and big sisters because a representative was there at the meeting. And he asked me, would I help them seek funding because he think it could help, getting mentors in the lives of some of these young people. And I told him I couldn't participate in that program unless I was part of the program. So I signed up to become a big brother. And I had the opportunity to become a big brother to a young man named Marcus. Marcus had lost his father at the age of, I believe, 13 to gun violence. He was robbed, leaving work, shot and killed. Now I remember as a new alderman going to the house. I mean, it broke my heart. And I went and sat with the family, so I remember seeing Marcus there. But at first, I tell you something, when they first approached me, they wanted me to be a mentor to a 10-year-old, and I was excited about it. No, I wanted to be. Let me correct that. I wanted a 10-year-old. And they said, well, we have a 15-year-old that we want you to take a look at. I'm like, oh, a 15-year-old, a teenager? I was like, I don't know. But they told me this young man's story, and they said, well, he has 3 other siblings, and they all are participating in Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and he's the only one that doesn't have a big brother. And when he shared the fact that he lost his father, I remembered that incident, and I said, I'm very interested. Let me have a conversation with Marcus. Had a conversation with Marcus. We built a very good friendship, brotherhood, and I'm so proud of Marcus today. Marcus is a police officer.
Wow.
And since he's a police officer, I worry and I'm concerned about him. I mean, with protest movements going on, with people, saying a lot of negative things about police officers, all police officers are not bad. And so I pray on a daily basis for his safety because he's important to me. And I want people to understand all police officers are not bad. They're here to protect and serve, and we need to give them a little more support today than we've ever given before.
Yes, sir. You explain what an alderman does, and I understand some of the things that you've done as a big brother and as a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
What is the role of the treasurer?
Well,
and some of the duties.
Sure. The role of the treasurer based on city charter, the treasurer is basically the person responsible for depositing the funds that the city receives on a daily basis. There's a lot of constituents come to the city and they make transactions. And so we need to deposit those funds. Also, the treasurer is the chief investment officer, basically, for the city of St. Louis. That's the major role of a treasurer. Now, of course, if you're the treasurer, you may have other roles that you define for yourself that will be helpful to the community. But that's the major role and function of the treasurer. And when I look at my experiences, when I look at my life experiences, having served my country for over 23 years, I had a great opportunity to serve in Zweibrücken, West Germany for 3 years. So it gave me an opportunity to get outside of the United States and experience another culture. It was a phenomenal experience for me as a young man. I had an opportunity because I loved the Army so much that I became an Army recruiter up in one of the suburbs of Chicago. And for a 22-year-old at that time, it was very challenging. I was in a very wealthy community, but I worked hard at it and I was successful.
I'm Donna Behringer, and I'm the 82nd District State Representative for the state of Missouri. I am supporting Jeffrey Boyd for Treasurer for the City of St. Louis. In 2003, both Jeffrey Boyd and I were elected to the St. Louis Board of Aldermen, and we were assigned to share the smallest office in the building. We had never met each other, so we went to lunch. We learned about each other and that we represented two of the most diversely different wards in the City of St. Louis. But what we learned from each other is what's most important. You have to learn what the issues are. You must take the time to do it. You must find the solutions, find the funding, and then implement. That's not easy, but Jeffrey's done it, and that's why I support Jeffrey for Treasurer for the City of St. Louis.
I came off active duty in 1990. I got married to my wife. We decided to move back in the neighborhood that we grew up in, right around the corner from my business. I met my wife when she was 10 and I was 12.
That's amazing. Okay.
Thank you. And she's put up with a lot, so I love her dearly and appreciate her. Trust me, almost 30 years. So we rehabbed some property in the neighborhood. We want to give back. We want to be part of rebuilding our community because we knew what it looked like when we were kids growing up. And I'm so proud of what we were able to do in our community. And today we continue to rebuild our community by starting a business in our community. Instead of letting the old warehouse fall apart and crumble, we decided to invest our own money and our own resources into rebuilding our community. The other thing that we've been able to do I've been able to do as an alderman, against all odds when it comes to development, because we are a very struggling, distressed neighborhood, oftentimes developers tend to just walk by. They see the vacant buildings, they see the vacant land, and in some people's mind, it's not just troubling, but they don't see the opportunity. I always present this as an opportunity to rebuild a once thriving community. So we did this project called Arlington Grove.
I was about to ask you about Arlington Grove, the housing development.
It's a $34 million phenomenal housing development, and it was done against all odds. I was told, Jeffrey, you won't have that type of development in your community for 15 years. And the developer that told me that ended up being a developer 2 years later after telling me that, putting this phenomenal project together.
And this project started in 2012?
It was commissioned in 2012. We did a groundbreaking in 2010. So I'm so proud of that. And as aldermen, again, those are some of the things we get involved in outside of our role of just being a legislator. We're trying to connect with different programs so that we can increase the quality of life of our citizens that we represent.
That is excellent. You've done some amazing things and you're still doing some amazing things. And I understand that you're a man who believes in being transparent.
Absolutely.
What would it look like for you to be transparent as the treasurer? What does that look like?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Transparency is very, very big, and integrity is very big to me. If I didn't learn anything else serving 23 years in the Army, I learned that integrity matters, and people have to be able to count on you with your word because we're a team. I learned the spirit of esprit de corps and teamwork being in the Army. So one of the things that I would stop as far as a policy, I would end the no contract business. Okay. I don't think that's productive. I don't think that helps taxpayers. I would also end extending contracts for years without going out for competitive bids. Because what happens is we can get comfortable with the vendor and we think the vendor is doing us a favor, but based on new technologies, we could be paying a lower cost for those particular services. I would also work hard to remove parking operations from the treasurer's office. I mean, St. Louis is kind of an odd community. Back in the 50s, the state legislature created this parking commission. Like I said, I'm a member on the parking commission by virtue of the fact that I'm chairman of Streets, Refuse, and Traffic. We get about 40% of the revenue generated annually for the city of St. Louis. Only 40%, the other 60% stays in parking operations. That money is not best used just collecting interest and being invested. That money should be back out in the communities, helping support us deal with potholes, making sure our streets, roads, and bridges are safe for travel. That money should be allocated to make sure that our trash is picked up on a regular basis, to make sure our first responders have the adequate resources to respond to our citizens' needs. That is how I would use the money, and I will make sure there's a transparent, open process so that when contracts go out for bid, it's posted everywhere, and it's a fair process, very open and transparent. People know me as an alderman. I say what I mean what I say. And if I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm not the type of guy that support broken promises. Your word matters to me, and your integrity matters to me.
Jeffrey Boyd is a true public servant and community leader representing North St. Louis for 17 years. He served his country in the United States Army as a Master Sergeant for 23 years. He's a husband, father, and a businessman. He's educated, and he has a master's in business administration. He's not afraid to challenge the status quo. Jeffrey Boyd is running for City of St. Louis Treasurer, and he has the support of nearly every elected official in the city, including me, 21st Ward Committeewoman Laura Keyes. Jeffrey Boyd has also earned the strong endorsement of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. On Tuesday, August 4th, vote for a true public servant. Vote for Jeffrey Boyd for Treasurer.
What happens if you should become treasurer to your role as alderman? Can you do both, or what has to happen?
Yeah, good question. Again, no, you can't do both. You can only be elected to one elected office at a time. So I would have to resign as alderman, but I have in mind a very good replacement for me.
You do already?
I do. Okay. I do.
And your family, and we talked about your wife supporting you all along, and you wanted to come back to the community to not come back, but stay in the community to do some things to better the area. What kind of support are you getting now from home? I mean, being treasurer is going to take a lot of time.
Sure. Well, first of all, again, I have a phenomenal wife, and my wife puts up with a lot of my absence from being at home. Because as an alderman, I'm always out in the community. I'm always going to meetings, and she is quite honestly taking a back seat, and it's not fair, but I love her for it, because my family is with me because of the vision that I see for this community. If I said, hey, babe, we're going to pack up and leave next week, they'll do the happy dance. Wow. But they're here because they love me and they share the passion that I have to serve this community. My wife and I are committed to being role models in this community. It's unfortunate that being married 30 years is an anomaly.
And that is true. I think when we first met, I told you that is just remarkable.
And I want to show people that you can be married 30 plus years. You can raise a family in this neighborhood where your children have a really good job, making a good wage, and they graduating from college, and your kid is going to St. Louis Public Schools. All of my children have gone to St. Louis Public Schools. Our community needs hope, Stephanie, and they need hope from people that's going to do the right thing and that's going to show them how to get to the next level. Oftentimes, people that have the resources that my wife and I have, they move out of these communities. And so the community just falls apart. And I understand. I mean, we're dealing with stuff in my community, prostitution on a daily basis, murders far too often, again, crumbling buildings, eyesores of buildings, high weeds and vegetations. People use our community as a dumping ground. But that's what we have to deal with. I focus on how do we clean it up and how do we make it better. The faster that we can redevelop our community, the faster we can eradicate all this negativity that's going on in our neighborhoods. But again, it takes somebody strong. It takes somebody who wants to persevere and who actually cares. I love my community. I'm here by choice because I want to make a difference. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I have some issues? Absolutely I do. But do I put people first? You bet I do. Because I take public service very seriously. Giving myself unselfishly to my country for 23 years and serving as an alderman for 17 years, service is part of my value system. And I want to encourage everybody to make service a little part of your value system. We can make our communities grow and be better if we all work together collectively. We shouldn't have one person as an elected official shoulder the burden of all the problems. That's not fair. And that will wear a person out. I always tell people, Stephanie, I'm not Superman, I'm one man. And I want to help as many people that I can get to make St. Louis a better place to live, to work, and to play. And being treasurer, I think will give me a platform to speak to more people, to teach them about financial literacy, to teach them about investing in their community. Because real estate, my wife and I have become middle class because we invest in real estate. While people are buying $200 tennis shoes, $200 pairs of pants, I don't want them to do that. I want them to understand the real power of their finances. Invest in yourself, invest in real estate, invest in mutual funds and stocks. Build a legacy to be left for your children. That is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in ensuring that when I'm no longer here, that my family will be financially secure. And I want to teach as many people as I can about financial security and some of the things that they can do to make their life a better life and make their community a better community.
Understanding that things change, and you have a platform that you're running on, what is maybe one or two of the major things that you want to do as soon as you get into office?
Well, here's one of the first priorities that I have taken office on day one, is meeting with all the staff. The culture of the treasurer's office needs to be one where everybody feels good coming to work. And everybody knows that the treasurer has their back. And nobody is any better than the next person. What I learned from the Army is that we're only as good as all of us working as a team. And if one person is down, then it's going to drag everybody down. So how do we uplift one another? My motto has always been, as an adult, I will never work somewhere when I don't like coming to work every day. And I've quit a couple of jobs. Didn't even have a job set up, but it was mentally draining for me to come to work. And when that happens for me, I have to go. So I want to create a culture in the treasurer's office where staff feels valuable and they feel that they can come to me anytime with any issue. And I want to listen to them. I want to listen to how we can make it better in the treasurer's office, because I'm not the type of person, I think I have all the right answers. Sometime when I've learned in the Army, you can be a general, you can be a captain, you can be a master sergeant, but that private might just have something to offer you that you didn't think about.
That's a very good point. But we've talked about a lot of things, but we didn't talk about the Harambe project. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Sure. The Youth Harambe Project is a project which takes 12-year-olds to 18, and they teach them how to tuck point. They teach them how to mix mortar. They teach them how to grind the joints out. They teach them how to butter the joints. It's very professional. And we've helped hundreds and hundreds of homeowners through that program. I'm so proud of it. It gives our youth something to do during the summertime. And you know what's so cool about it, Stephanie, is they will come back and say, I remember when I tuck pointed that house. And they feel so good about it. They're proud of their accomplishments. And guess what? They're giving back to the community. And it's free to every homeowner that takes advantage of it.
I am Lisa Middlebrook, Alderwoman for the City of St. Louis 2nd Ward, and I am supporting Jeffrey Boyd for St. Louis City Treasurer. Be the change in which you wish to see. This is Jeffrey Boyd. He is the change that we need for the Treasurer's Office for the City of St. Louis. He is honest, reliable, accountable, and transparent. So, vote with me for Jeffrey Boyd on August the 4th. Thank you.
I'm Jeffrey Boyd, and I'm asking for your vote on August the 4th.
So you have really laid out some challenges that you have overcome. But as treasurer, how can you effect a change in those areas?
Well, sure, it's an indirect benefit that the community receives from a good treasurer. Again, one of the things that I can do is fight hard to make sure that instead of the city getting 40% of the revenue annually, that they get 100% of the revenue annually that goes back into our communities, that can go back into forestry, that can go back into the street department, that can go back into these departments that can take care of these quality of life issues that we're dealing with in our neighborhoods. That's a big deal. Hoarding to all these millions of dollars for a good credit rating, that's not acceptable. We can do better than that. Let's put the money to work for the people. It's the people's money, and they deserve it. And I will be the type of treasurer that's a treasurer for the whole city, not just parking operations. Being a treasurer is a full-time job serving all citizens of the city of St. Louis. Also working well with the business community. That's important. I am so proud of the fact that I have over 50% of the elected officials that represent the city of St. Louis supporting me. That's called good relationships. And I would take those relationships with me to the treasurer's office so that we can all start working together collectively. When the Board of E&A, Estimate and Apportion, puts the budget together every day, which is the combination of the comptroller, the mayor, and the president of the Board of Aldermen, as your treasurer, I will make sure the investment strategies are in line with the priorities that's been set forth in the budget. I will make sure that I work well with all members of the Board of Aldermen. I will be a team player. We are one city. It's time out that people, as elected officials, act like they're in their own little silo and only concerned about themselves. I'm concerned about the whole city of St. Louis, and I will be a treasurer that puts St. Louis first, period.
Earlier in our conversation, we talked about integrity. And one thing I noticed, you not only talked about it, you demonstrated it, because you said, I'm not perfect, I'm human, and but you're gonna do the best that you can and be honest and transparent and upfront with people. Have you noticed transparency currently in the administration?
Well, I've noticed that in the current treasurer's office that transparency is not real. And I'll give you an example of a $7 million contract that was awarded to a contractor basically behind closed doors. No one knew it had been signed. As a member of the parking commission, I had no idea that the contract had been signed. We were having discussions about the contract for a couple of months, and then discussions ended. And then all of a sudden I realized why it ended, because the contract was already signed. That was inappropriate. And there's language in the contract that I don't support. I don't think the city of St. Louis should be paying 25% of the retail cost of new vehicles that are purchased by the vendor. I don't think that's fair, because the vendor's quote for that contract was $7 million or so. And so now we're given a bonus. And then at the end of the contract, the city is on the hook for buying all the vehicles back for 75% of market value. That's not even in the budget. So doing those backroom deals is something I'm not interested in. I'm interested in working as a team player. Everybody should have a voice. Nobody should be silenced. There should be nothing done behind closed doors. I am talking about real transparency and going above and beyond the call of duty if necessary to ensure that everybody has an equal opportunity to bid on contracts that are awarded through the treasurer's office. That's important.
Okay. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure the audience gets an opportunity to hear?
That Jeffrey Boyd is well qualified to assume the position of treasurer. I would be a leader that leads with honesty, loyalty, dedication, and transparency. It is time that we have a treasurer that's going to put St. Louis first, and that's what I'm all about. And I'll be asking everybody on August the 4th to vote for me, Jeffrey Boyd, as your treasurer. And get involved in the campaign if you can. You can email me at info@jeffreyboyd.com. You can visit my website and find out a little more about my platform and who I am at jeffreyboydfortreasurer.com. And you follow me on Twitter at Jeffrey Boyd. Follow me on Facebook, Jeffrey Boyd. So get involved with the campaign. We're real excited. We're going to do this. And I look forward to serving as the treasurer in 2021.
August 4th. Don't forget, the election is August 4th. Jeffrey Boyd, candidate for treasurer in the city of St. Louis, Missouri. I just want to thank you again for your time. We have to wrap things up now, and I want to encourage you again. Don't forget, the election is August 4th. Jeffrey Boyd, candidate for treasurer in the city of St. Louis, Missouri. My name is Stephanie Anthony Miles, and thank you for tuning in today to hear more about Jeffrey Boyd, candidate for treasurer in the city of St. Louis.